So let's get started. So we were looking at the 13th chapter in the last session. 13th chapter differentiated the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. The knowledge of differentiating the Kshetra and Kshetrajna is a very important one in the realization of the self, or to understand what the self is. Even in not only in spiritual circles, but even in non-spiritual application of the wisdom of the Bhagavad-Gita, we have seen, we illustrated that in the last session in terms of how organizations can rejuvenate itself if it is able to identify and differentiate between the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. So we will take a quick look at that so that we refresh our memories. So basically, we must understand that the infinite, or in Sanskrit, Brahman, is what manifests within each one of us as the Jiva. So we are all masquerading as Jivas. In the sense, we are all Brahman masquerading as Jivas. That is the ideal way we should define ourselves. Who are you? I am Jiva masquerade. I am Brahman masquerading as Jiva. That is how we should be looking at things. So within each one of us, the presence of the infinite, as the infinite, the Brahman, is right there through. And how do the infinite express through ourselves? Through the transformation of the universal forces of nature as life energy within us. Jiva is blessed with the powers of intellect, ego, mind, and the senses. The physical apparatus of the body, the senses, the sense centers, the motor control centers, and the mind works through the organs of action, karmendriya. So all these things, about the various sense centers, the jnanendriyas and the panchendriyas, everything, works through the mind and makes the karmendriyas act in this world. The mind gets attached. Now what happens is this mind invariably gets attached through the properties of nature, that is knowledge, ignorance, and passion. These are the properties of nature. Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas. These Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas bind the mind with the self and then gets the mind to act. So the Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas to act, express itself, giving rise to likes and dislikes, and pleasure and pain, the feeling of they and me, I and others, etc. The mind's processes, what are the processes by which the mind does this? There is an internal process, mind's processes. We don't have to go into the scientific or technical details of how the mind works, but there is a process that is happening within us which gives rise to thoughts, and the thoughts are, then connected with other thoughts, experiences, memories, etc., and how they act. The mind's processes, which are expressions of the life energy, that they are all nothing but expressions of the life energy within us, are what generates the experiences within. So this processes, mind processes, working with the senses, sense centers, etc., gives us the experiences. And these experiences are a product of the mind, therefore, and the senses together. This mental processes working in conjunction with the sensory processes constitute what is called as the experiencer. The experiencer, therefore, is not just the self. The self, when it is empowering the senses, sense centers, and then the mind, and the process starts energized, starts working in an energetic mode, that wholesome thing, self empowering the mind, senses, and the processes, is basically what gives us the experiences, and it is that unit that is called as the Jiva. This Jiva is basically the experiencer, therefore the Kshetrajna. So Kshetrajna is nothing but the self encased in the physical BMI. That is Kshetrajna. Without the BMI, the Kshetrajna does not experience anything. And without the the self, the Kshetrajna, there is no experiences for the Jiva. So, the experiencer, the Kshetrajna is this conglomerate, this unit, which is working through our mind, senses, etc. Self plus the BMI. Self plus the BMI. And it is not just about it all, it encompasses all the variations of the mind with respect to the knowledge, ignorance, and the passion. Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas. So that is the experiencer. So now where did this experiencer come into being? It came into being because of the Brahman, the infinitude, or the Purusha energizing the BMI. So Purusha energizing the BMI becomes the experiencer. The Purusha, when it is trapped within the BMI, is called as the self. And that self, along with the BMI and all the modifications of the mind, is what is called as the experiencer, giving us the experiences. And all the material things, including the mind and the processes within the mind, etc., are the physical hardware, the physical, Panjendriya based things, Panjabhuta based things is the Kshetra. All those physical things are the Kshetra. So we have the self, the Purusha, becoming the experiencer Kshetrajna because of the Kshetra being the base. So that is how Kshetra and Kshetrajna is being differentiated in the 13th chapter. And the 13th chapter also declared the knowledge or the mindset. You can see that it is the mind, the physical thing, the mind, that is basically the medium of the experiences. Without the mind, there is no experiences. So as long as you are a human being with a mind, you will experience it. Otherwise, the self is beyond all experiences. It is the pure energy. This mind is basically what traps the self and makes us the Jiva and gives us the experiences. And this mind is basically what controls the flow of all the thought processes within us. So, if we really want to understand what the self is, if we want to really understand the Purusha, it is the mind that needs to be in tune with that knowledge. So we, as a physical entity, every human being needs to fine-tune the mind. And what will you fine-tune it with? That knowledge is basically what the Upanishads give us. That is the knowledge that the Bhagavad-Gita gives us. This Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga is that knowledge, is that fine-tuned knowledge that Krishna is trying to give Arjuna, so that we are able to understand who this Purusha is, who this self is. So it is the mind. And therefore, the mind needs certain characteristics. That is what 13th chapter tells us. In addition to differentiating what Kshetra and Kshetrajna is, Vedavyasa also goes on to tell us what are the characteristics of the mind that is required for you to really understand the self. So that is what we all of us should actually focus on. We need to focus on those characteristics of the self, the mind, that will help us to really get connected to the self. So the verses, actually 8 to 12, verses 8 to 12 in the 13th chapter was discussing that. We had listed that, but for brevity and recap, I will just now again show you that. So to understand Purusha, Kshetrajna and Kshetra, we need to apply our mind. And what are the characteristics of the mind that are required? That is basically what 13.8 to 13.12 listed it out. Krishna just listed it out to Arjuna for him to reflect and think about it. So I will also now list it out once again, and everyone can actually start thinking about it. By referring to 13.8 to 13.12, humility, modesty, innocence, patience, uprightness, service of the teacher, purity, steadfastness, and self-control. Absence of attachment for objects of the senses, and absence of egoism. Perception of pain in birth, death, old age, etc., in sickness and in distress. Non-attachment. Absence of selfish affection for offspring, spouse, home, and the like, and constant equanimity on the attainment of the desirable and the undesirable. Both could be good or bad, whatever it is, be equanimous. Unflinching in devotion to the self is the yoga of non-separation from the self. So it has to be mindfulness, constant mindfulness on the power that the self is within us, and that the BMI, which is actually being controlled by the gunas, will be behaving that way, and we need to control those gunas. Sattva-rajas tamo gunas, three knobs of the radio, equipment, if you think about it, and fine-tuning that is basically what is required. Resorting to places of serenity, that is about having good friendships, good associations, etc. Salsangatva, nisangatva, all those things we have heard. Adi Shankaracharya has mentioned that distaste of the society, of the indiscriminate. You do not like bad company at all. Constancy in self-knowledge, always be having, have faith in this knowledge of the self, that the power of the self is infinite, and that it is your real identity. Realization of the end of knowledge as that knowledge of the self. That is the ultimate knowledge that we need to have. That is declared to be knowledge. And that is what real knowledge is, and what is opposed to ignorance. So this is basically the kind of mental attitude that we should have, so that we will be able to grasp what the self is. Constantly trying to fine-tune your mind to this is required. So that is the reason why Krishna thereafter went on to talk about the fine-tuning of the gunas, which is the 14th chapter. Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Okay, so we are coming to that, but before that, let us also take a look at once more about the normal condition of a human being. I am the BMI. That is basically, so I am limited. That's what I am thinking. I have the body, I have the mind and the intellect, and this is what I am. And therefore, I am limited. That is what everybody thinks. We have to get out of that and understand that I am the self. That is self-knowledge. Whereas the BMI is just the medium for the expression of that infinitude. And the BMI is changeable. Therefore, change it. And try to become limitless, unbound, etc. Try to become, strive towards that. Striving towards that is the process of spiritual living. Striving to get out of the limitations. It is not that if you get out of the limitations only that you will succeed. No. What Krishna says is that striving to achieve that limitless existence is what success is all about. It is that process. The process, constant process of striving to become better and better in the knowledge of the self, and therefore tap the infinitude from within us, is basically what a successful life is. So, I am the BMI is what everyone thinks, but I am the self. That is the wisdom that we really are. That is what we all are. This is Gita intelligence. This is what Upanishad knowledge is all about. This is what the Bhagavad-Gita is teaching us. That you need to reach this state of wisdom where we have an unflinching loyalty to the infinite self that we have housed within ourselves, such that that infinitude has become the BMI, the animated BMI, the Jiva, and giving us all the kinds of experiences. Sitting within us as the Kshatrajna. through the kshetra, it is enlightening us, and our mind should be receptive to understand that knowledge, and the characteristics of the mind was basically described. So it is the same thing, we looked at this in the last session, that, organizations, just like individuals, can become limitless and reach up to the perfection that the infinite self is all about. Similarly, organizations can also reach up to the infinitude, because the organizational entity is another created entity, exactly mimicking the human entity, in the sense of, it has got all its paraphernalia of the processes, and organizations and infrastructure and people in the organization. But that is not exactly the organization. That is the kshetra. What is the organization? The organization is that context of it. It is the idea. It is the business intent. It is the connection that the organization has to make with the customer. And it is the employee experience, the people who are working there and their experiences. All this contextual information is the power that drives the organization, and therefore that is the organizational self. It has to be a unique and inspiring context in terms of how you connect this context and the customers and the employees together to provide agility, innovation, and growth for the organization. Intrinsic energization. That is basically what is called as the intrinsic energization. Just as the self is intrinsically powering us, the self of the organization, the purpose of the organization, the higher purpose of the organization has to empower that organization. Then even the kshetra will start functioning very well. So that's basically what we were looking at as a practical, implications of this knowledge. And we saw that knowledge, passion, and ignorance is basically what creating all the, the kaleidoscopic experience. If people are different, everyone is different, because their knowledge and their ignorance combination is completely different from other people, other person. My knowledge and my ignorance cannot be matched by any other person. That person will have his own or her own knowledge and ignorance. It can never be the same, because they are all tuned by the amount of effort you put in to acquire knowledge, as well as the experiences that you gather in the surroundings, the environment, and how you look after the mind such that you grasp these things. So people will be different, and then you project based on this knowledge and ignorance. You project. So the sattva, rajas, tamo gunas are acting, and it will be different for everyone. So how do you actually, what is it? What are these gunas? And how do you understand that? And how do you fine tune that? Is basically the subject matter of the 14th chapter, the next chapter, which is the Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. So that's basically that, we have selected three verses that actually highlight the importance of this knowledge, as well as gather and give you the amount of information that is, available in the 27 verses in that chapter. So let's look at that. Today, we are going to look at that. These three slokas, Sarva Yonishu Kaunteya, that 4th verse, 5th verse, and the 17th verse encapsulate that knowledge. Whatever forms are produced, the various forms that we, all of us, individuals, we are each different from the other. Similarly, there are so many other non-living and also non-human beings, everything, are all different. Forms are produced. The material with which that form is created is the form giver. In fact, the kshetra, that is what the form giver is. And the self, the Purusha, the infinite, that gives that energy of life within it, is the life giver. So that's the fundamental thing that we need to understand. Actually, you can go on thinking about it, and so much of knowledge is embedded in this one statement. Whatever forms are produced, material nature is the form giver, and the self is the life giver. We will look at it a little bit. And the next is, what are these? Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, the properties, the gunas. that arise out of the material nature. Every material has got this three characteristics. Only three characteristics. These three characteristics bind the self to that body. Knowledge, it is the knowledge that binds the self to the body. It is the ignorance that binds the self to the body. And it is the capacity to project that binds the self to this body. And that binding is what creates all the differences. You cannot prevent that. It will happen. So, and 13th chapter told you how you can shape that binding. The mind's characteristics. And then it says, knowledge of the self, summarizing it, knowledge of the self comes from goodness. Greed arises from passion. Delusion and slowness of the mind, lethargy, comes from ignorance as a general rule. You can project this to various kinds of things. What is knowledge? What is goodness? What is greed, anxiety, and passions? And what is delusion and lethargy? So, they come from ignorance. This is how the gunas are described. In 3 verses, we summarized it. And let's look at that a little bit more in detail. It says, the first one, whatever forms are produced, the physical form, Prakriti or nature, material nature, is the form giver that gives the shape, more, names and forms are given by the Prakriti. And then the Purusha, the self, what is the power, life force within us, which gives life to us. That life force works through the intellect, mind, and the senses. Working through the intellect, mind, and senses helps us to think, feel, and sense the world outside. The life energy within us is basically what energizes the mind to make us think and feel, and the senses so that it can actually interact with the outside world. And therefore, the self is the life giver. The Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas bind this life to this body. Sattva, white, Rajas, red, and black, tamas. The colors, I have given the color codes just to show that these gunas are what actually ties down the self to the body. The self, which is everywhere, but is within this energizing the BMI. Therefore, the self is tied with the knowledge, ignorance, and the passion to that body. So knowledge, ignorance, and passion are the rope with which we are all tied to the body. And it is the knowledge that we have to use to get out of that bond. That is what Gita is teaching us. That knowledge, sattva, is represented by everything that is good, goodness, knowledge, light, illumination, happiness, all those things. So all those are described in this chapter. What are these characteristics? So there is a sattvic effect, there is a rajasic effect, and a tamasic effect. You must have actually, I've posted these things in the last few days. So you can in practice, you can actually see this, each one of these effects and try to see how it is connected with our living. Tendency to work and practice hard. If suppose within us we get the feeling that, no, I need to understand this, whatever it is, as a student, as a college going student, or as a professional worker, or as a homemaker, wherever it is, if you are putting in effort, if you have the passion from within us to put more effort into what you are doing and, do it very well, it could be, in the kitchen, it could be at the home doing something, it could be at the professional friend, at the work, in the work site, office, etc., doing something and giving the best out of yourself, putting the effort to give the best, and for that, and practicing hard to give the best. If your mind is giving you the energy to do that. If you are fine-tuning your mind such that these energies are tapped, then that is sattvic effect. That is what, that is how we apply this knowledge of the self, the sattvic knowledge of that we need, so that we can tap the infinitude of the self into the outside world. Trying to excel at what you are doing, trying to not just excelling. Excelling is a term that people get offended with. So I will say trying to improve yourself at every stage. Trying to improve yourself. That drive for excellence is basically what it is. You keep on doing that every day, you may break the barrier of excellence, which you think is impossible at this point in time. If you keep on doing that. So this is the message that Gita is giving. Then sense of duty and dedication. If you are powered by this sense, yes, this is my duty, and I am dedicated in my thinking and work so that I will fulfill the responsibilities. If I am powered by that energy, then that power is sattvic power. Focus of mind and concentration, the power that you apply through your mind to get yourself focused, to think about something and fix your mind on something, force your attention towards something which is connected to duty, responsibilities, hard work, practice, etc. That focus stream is the power of the self within us, which is the sattvic power of the self. Not carried away by likes and dislikes. So all of these things will also imply that you are not pulled apart by likes and dislikes, because duty is important. Your responsibilities are important. And you go forward. No likes and dislikes. Foresight of the consequences of action. If you can develop the power of foresight about the consequences of your action, in advance, not after doing it. After doing it, yes, you learn that is also definitely in the initial stages of your life. You may make mistakes and then learn from it. And you should use that to develop your foresight, so that you are able to predict the results of your actions and fine-tune it to the best manner possible. That is sattvic power. So sattvic effect of the mind will show through us in this fashion. Similarly, if you look at the other one, you'll see very purely rajasic, not sattvic. What happens is, in generally haphazard work, disorganized work, last minute rushes, feeling jealous of others and greedy, etc. Always concerned about the results only and what is there in it for me. Tendency to do what pleases you. Whatever I like, I will do. Other things I don't. Reckless behavior, irresponsibility, all those things are rajasic effect. That is when the self is actually tied to this results, rajasic rajasic effects. When the self is tied by the rajasic effects, your performance, the way you live in this world becomes like this. So it is not the mistake of the self. It is how the mind is tying the self to the body in this fashion. Tamasic effect, feeling of know-it-all, despite gaps in knowledge. Even if you don't know, you'll say, I know everything. That kind of an attitude is coming out of ignorance, and then you are trying to hide that ignorance. That is tamasic effect. And the self will simply come, power through your mind and exhibit those characteristics. You cannot blame the self for it. Attitude of irreverence and indifference to things, in irreverence without any, kind of no respect to anyone. Carelessness, don't care attitude. Tendency to do things even though you know that it is wrong or bad. Lack of foresight, just the opposite of sattva. So these are the ways in which the gunas tie your mind and the self to the mind that is, working in this particular fashion. So these are the characteristics explained in this chapter in various, from verse 4, 5, and 17 are the highlights that I took up. But these characteristics are explained in between in the other lines, which I have taken and given practical implication to that. So it is about the self that is encapsulating, it is encircling our self with the BMI. What is BMI? BMI is nothing but the representation of all our capabilities, thought power, and all those things. So those things of the mind and the body. The self is enlivening that. And when you are keen to pursue knowledge, that means keen to pursue knowledge and wanting to know more, etc. That means sattva is predominant. And you are driven by luminosity and health, brightness and health. Happiness is the result. Happiness and knowledge. That is sattva. When you are driven by passion, keen to pursue pleasures, sense pleasures, etc., that means you are driven by the fruits of the work. What will you get out of what you are doing? The fruits of the work. You are bound by the fruits of work. The results of the work. That is rajas. When you are bound by laziness, lethargy, etc., that means you are, and also you are keen to pursue forbidden things, things that are wrong. You want to sleep when you are supposed to be doing things. You want to do bad things. You want to attack others and make disturbance everywhere and destroy the peace, etc. That is coming out of tamas, of ignorance, of delusion. So negligence is your form. So when your mind is a personification of happiness, that means you are bound by sattva. When your mind is a personification of your thirst for results of actions, that is rajas. And when it is bound by negligence, lethargy, etc., that means you are tamasic. So these are the three characteristics, basic characteristics of the guna. Sattva of goodness, rajas of vigor and activity, tamas of ignorance. Now, what happens is, all the three are present in everyone. When sattva is predominant, that means rajas and tamas will be lesser. Similarly, when rajas is predominant, sattva and tamas will be less predominant. When tamas is predominant, sattva and rajas will be lesser predominant. So this balance is basically what we should understand. We should study ourselves to determine, are we sattvic or are we rajasic or are we tamasic? I mean, it is not that, that tendency is also what you call, is bound strictly as a set in stone. It is not. Today, you may be sattvic, less rajasic and less tamasic. But after some time or tomorrow, you may be rajasic, less sattvic and tamasic. It keeps changing also, depending on our mind, mood, etc. So, whenever you are in a kind of quandary, I think it is good to reflect upon yourself and then find out what is predominantly driving, sattva, rajas, or tamas. It is something, it is an exercise that you can keep conducting on yourself every day, whenever you can. And that is going to help your mind to shape yourself. Because you know that sattvic tendencies are what you should develop. So this constant, connection with this differentiation of the knowledge between sattva, rajas, and tamas is going to help you to predominantly cultivate sattvic tendencies. That is the reason why the 14th chapter is a Indian, it is something, it is kind of a manual for you to keep at your hand every day. And, or once in a while, every day, you can actually refer to that and try to understand what is sattva, rajas, and tamas, and try to connect that with what your thoughts are, how you are behaving that day, and what you are, how you are interacting with the society, etc. So the tamasic effect is basically, this is what I described in the previous slide: rajasic effect, sattvic effect, and the tamasic effect based on these kind of interactions. Sattvic is virtuous, results in purity. Rajasic is about animation, agitations, etc., resulting in anxiety, misery. Tamasic is negligent, resulting in ignorance. So sattva results in goodness, rajas in greed and passion, delusion and illusion, and ignorance come from tamas. Sattva takes you upward. The arrows depict that. Sattva takes you upward. In the sense, it helps you to progress towards your goals, towards your purpose, etc. Rajas is a two-way street. It can take you down, or it can make you progress or backward, depending on the kind of sattvic tendencies that actually power the rajas, or the tamasic tendencies that power the rajas. Tamas is something that will pull you down. So Arjuna asked Krishna how you can transcend the gunas. What are the characteristics of someone who has transcended the gunas? This is basically what Arjuna's question was. That was answered by Krishna through 4 or 5 verses. I mean, in the sense, I think 22 to 25, 22, 23, 24, and 25 verses. And it is listed here. No likes and dislikes. Such a person, sattvic person, will not have likes and dislikes. He will be undistracted, mindful, focused. He will be firmly rooted in goodness, in the purpose, the goal. He will be equanimous. Both mind and intellect will be balanced. Equanimity and equipoise. Mind balance is equanimity. Intellectual balance is what is called as equipoise. Impartial. Will always be impartial. Because it doesn't have likes and dislikes, so his mind will be impartial. And he will be renounced. Renounced in the sense that he will not be looking at the results, but will not set his eyes on the results, but will focus on the process. Without any regret of the past, anxieties about the future, agitations in the present. That focus of mind, that mindfulness of the mind is basically the power of now, is basically what will be driving such people. He will be driven by the joys of the self, inspired by the inner joys of the self. Selfless. Thus, he will be selfless and he will be inspired. Such people are actually reflecting the power of the infinitude, reflecting the power of the imperishable, reflecting the power of the immortal or life. These are characteristics of the self, and reflecting the power of righteousness. And he will always be fulfilled. He will be happy, serene, content. So characteristics are defined as infinite, imperishable, immortal, righteous, and fulfilled. So such is the characteristics of a sattvic person, devoted to the power of the self. So this is the people who transcend the gunas will be of this characteristics. This is also defined. Now it is a question of how you will apply all this knowledge, in the world, in the physical world that we are living in the transactory world that we are living in. How do you do that? There are lots of, problems that you will face in this life. And how do you actually apply this information, this knowledge, this wisdom? So, to make it easier, I have listed these things as workplace practices that you can apply, these sattva, rajas, and tamo gunas, so that you can succeed in this life. Workplace means it doesn't need to be even at home, all these practices can be applied. Then the wisdom can be applied. So constructive at workplace, that is the sattvic guna. Of course, this is all we may not be able to read fully from the screen, but I have posted these things separately in the group, WhatsApp group previously itself. So you may be able to, if you have gone through that, at least glanced at it, you may possibly be able to connect with that. But I will, for clarity, I will just read out a few of them so that we understand what sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic fine tuning is all about in our life. So sattvic, somebody who is sattvic, he is able to understand and grab opportunities. He knows when an opportunity comes by that he will be able to grab it and then use it for the betterment of not only the self but the others. It takes the initiatives to actually grab opportunities. Smartly occupies such and is able to occupy these blank spaces which nobody does, but he knows that there is an opportunity for me to actually grow by doing that, which is not earmarked for me, but it is good that if I do it, I will learn, as well as the team, the organization, the home will be benefited. He will become the go-to person. He'll be a great team player, exhibit courageous conscience that we talked about. We are going to look at it in the next 16th verse also. What is courageous conscience? Abhayam, purity, abhayam, fearlessness, purity of mind, samshuddhi, and knowledge, rooted in knowledge. Jana Yoga Vyavasthiti, which we will look at separately. Proactively moves forward, will not wait for others, will not wait for somebody to tell you to do something, but you will always look ahead and then take action. Optimistic in outlook, applies incremental creativity, is prudent in breaking status quo and moving forward, breaking comfort zones, and is able to actually estimate his own work and make projections. And all strategies, success strategies, are applied such that there is a overall organizational good, truly personal good, but organizational. So these are the characteristics of a constructive personality, a sattvic personality. Rajasic means, tries to interfere with other people's work, always on the prowl and proactively toes the, management line so that, you are always in good light. And, aggressive outlook, always misses deadlines or, overestimates or underestimates and things like that. Personal gains are what such people will aim for, and they are incentive driven. So those are the aggressive or the rajasic people. Passive people are, are ignorant. They miss out on opportunities. They become confined to their, little worlds, and does what is told. I will not do anything other than that. Take initiatives. They won't do it. Pessimistic in outlook, reinvents the wheel. Status quo, remains in comfort zones, and becomes stagnated. So these are passive people, tamasic people. So these tendencies we need to be understood and applied. So knowledge, passion, and ignorance. Knowledge, the sattva characteristics is about maximizing your constructive styles, is what is called as sattvic people. They always tend to maximize these constructive styles, the ones which I listed previously. Passion, optimizing aggressive styles is basically what their nature is. Eliminating passive. So now the passive things, people who succumb to it is tamasic, but then there are certain times when you need to do that also, so that a sattvic person can become more and more sattvic by utilizing a little bit of tamas. So that is basically eliminating the passive styles is basically what ignorance removal is all about. So how do you apply these energies, sattva, rajas and tamas, in your life? In that perspective is what is written here. In terms of maximization, thinking and planning, learning and experiencing, teaching and guiding, being mindful and considerate, creative and courageous. That is all sattvic tendencies coming through. Driven by momentum quotient, the drive to move forward. Priorities, prioritizing the requirements, attention and focus, being inclusive and supporting others, developing multiple perspectives. These are all rajasic elements coming into the marrying the sattvic capabilities. And then the tamas also, utilize that. Complain, compliant. You will be compliant to things, rules, regulations, etc. That compliancy is not full tamas. Being servile is tamas. So compliant but not servile. I mean, slavishly following things. That is not what it is. You are compliant in the sense you understand what is required and you stick within those frameworks. That compliance is actually positively employing tamasic tendencies. Reserved but not passive. Sleep when required. Rest as and when needed. And indulging moderately. So these are all the ways in which you can tap the sattva, rajas, tamo gunas so that you become a polished personality. The characteristic details of the sattva, rajas, tamo gunas were enumerated in the previous verses so that you are able to fine-tune the mind, sattva, rajas, tamo gunas, in such a fashion that the self shines forth from within. It's just like, tuning the violin or tuning the veena or something like that. You have the various strings which you will fine tune through the knobs. You cannot tighten it. Over tightness will not produce good music. I mean, complete everything sattvic, no rajas, no tamas, nothing, and then you will become so tight that no music will come out. In the sense, nothing practical will come out. Similarly, you cannot loosen yourself such that you are full of tamas. Then also nothing will happen. So you have to fine tune it in the right tightness. Sattva, rajas and tamas balanced in such a way that you are a fine-tuned veena so that the music of self comes out of it. When you play that veena, the music of the self will shine forth. That enabling of greatness in the individual mindsets such that you are in tune with the self is basically what the chapter on Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga actually means to us. So it's about, applying sattva, rajas, tamo gunas in a strategic way. That is basically what is enumerated in this. So I will also look at, which I will post from tomorrow onwards. I will post some of these details in the next 2 or 3 days or next week so that you can actually understand the practical implications of it. I'm going to look at some of the ways in which you apply this. For example, in taking initiatives. Sattva, rajas, tamo gunas, how it plays. So what is taking initiatives? It is about, rising above your normal requirements and working to add value to the organization or family or project or team or whatever you are working on. So that it is benefiting others, not only you, benefiting the people around you. and also the family or the organization or the team, etc. And it is not about coming up with ideas to help that, but also following through with it such that you achieve the goal. There may be some risk taking required. So this is all about the initiative taking. Now let us look at this one example, initiative taking, and see how Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas play out in different minds. We can actually equate ourselves to these situations and then see how sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic we are. If you are a sattvic person, while taking initiatives, you will be looking at increasing the scope and range of what you are doing. It's not just for your personal advertisement, glory that you are taking up initiatives. You are doing it such that you can enhance the value that you are adding, enhance the value that your team is adding, enhance the value that your organization is adding, enhance the stature of your family. All those things come into play. That is sattvic. Are you doing it for your personal goodness or show off that you are good? No. But you are doing something for the common goal. And you are sometimes, there may be some things that you have to do because you have to get out of your comfort zone. You are being driven by that, emerging out of comfort zones. That is also initiative taking. And you are expanding not blindly, but knowledge, using knowledge-based expansion. There is a selfless orientation in all of this. It is not just purely for your own sake, but for the larger goal. Even emerging out of your comfort zone is about expanding yourself. Yes, it is expanding yourself, but that is not selfish. As long as that expansion is meant for the common good. That expansion should not be motivated by the fact that if I do this, then I will get more money, I will get more recognition, I will get more power, I will get promoted. That if that is driving you, then it is selfish and that is not sattvic. But yes, if I learn these new skills, then my team is going to become better at, or my organization is going to be recognized as an in that area also, and therefore it is going to benefit many others, then it becomes a sattvic. So that is the kind of mental fiber that we need to develop. Now, there are other kind of people, Rajasic people, the way they work will be, it is for showcasing their own, capabilities and skills and then for their own sake, aggressive in this thing, so that, they benefit. Selfish orientation, aggressively pushing forward. And sometimes they also will be hasty, ill-informed, and therefore they will do things when it is really not yet time to do things. All those kind of things come under Rajasic tendencies. Tamasic, do not understand scope, happy in comfort zone, ignorance is predominant, no value addition, keep repeatedly doing things, procrastination, everything, and highly prone to failures. Even if they take risks, they'll fail because they are blindly taking those risks. Such are the tamasic tendencies exhibited by people. So this is the way things work. Rajasic, tamasic, and you can see the sattva, rajas, tamo guna playing out in our daily living itself. It is all actually entrapping the self in a mind that is actually binding the self to rajas and tamas, etc., instead of sattva. So I have given some examples in self-management also for that. All of these things, actually the enhancing the scope and range, for example, which I talked about in initiatives, is about creating or recognizing opportunities. So you are creating opportunities for yourself by doing that. And thereby you are actually managing yourself to expand your repertoire of capabilities, skills, knowledge. So it is also helping your own expansion. When you expand, when you increase your knowledge, when you increase your domain expertise, what is happening is you are contributing more and more to the society. When you are contributing more and more to the society, in terms of initially maybe contributing more and more to the family, or contributing more and more to your team, or contributing more and more to your organization, slowly that is going to expand to contributing more and more to the society. Contributing more and more to the society will soon start, expanding into contributing more and more for the nation, for the environment, for the world at large. So this is how the expression of the self has to expand. Sattvic, through sattva. Whereas rajasic and tamasic self-management fails in creating opportunities, or makes errors, and therefore destroys the peace and foundations of societies. How do salsangate and sangatam, good company, good, all those things, sattvic networking, sattvic connections, making connections in the sattvic manner, rooted in knowledge, harmony, etc., compassion, etc. Rajasic one is about, passion, aggression, for selfish interests. Tamasic one is about ignorance, knowledge deficits, and, blindly doing things and making the wrong connections and then coming to a doom. So, networking, Sattva-Rajas Tamo gunas play a role. In teamwork, Sattva-Rajas Tamo guna play a role. Sattvic one is about joint ownership. Even in a team, if there is a team leader also, as an individual, suppose you are working that team, it is you will work like a leader so that you aid or strengthen the arms of the leader. That is the sattvic teamwork tendency. You help to resolve conflicts in the team if at all something comes up. Proactive in helping others. But rajasic means, you have selfish interests in doing all this. And tamasic one is driven by ignorance, passion, or laziness, so you don't do things. So teamwork is ruled by sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic tendencies. Once you understand what sattva, rajas, tamo gunas are, then you will be able to perform as a better and better team player. As a follower, no, not as a leader, but as a follower. How you actually take leadership, self-leadership in doing things. That is sattvic followership, self-leadership. You work like a leader. And similarly, you may not be an entrepreneur. You are an employee in an organization. Still, you will think like an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurial thinking is an entrepreneurial mindset is something that aids organizations. That is a sattvic reflection of knowledge for a purpose, knowledge for a purpose. Rajasic is about, again, selfishness coming into play. Just to see that your value is increasing and, showcase your own, power and position. Tamasic is ridden by laziness, lethargy, ignorance. And therefore, there are lots of issues that come about in such followers. And in organizations, you can see all these three kinds of people. A mix of these, as well as predominantly not showing some of these things. Many people show predominant traits. How do you identify the predominant trait? And then, in a selection process, for example, by talking to people, you will be able to understand the sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic tendencies within them. Similarly, once you start working, you can actually start rewarding those people who are showing sattvic tendencies and encouraging rajasic people and tamasic people to strive towards reaching the sattvic tendencies. In fact, in the 14th chapter, there is also a mention about how you progress from tamasic to rajasic. It is not possible for, Krishna says that it is not possible for somebody to directly jump from a tamasic state to a sattvic state. So basically what he says is that from tamas to slowly raise him to rajas, contaminated rajas, malinas, contaminated sattva initially, malina sattva, and then to sattva. So tamas to rajas to sattva is the path that needs to be applied, is the progress that needs to be applied to individuals who are rooted in tamas. Slowly, slowly start changing. In fact, suppose somebody is not doing something, then you should encourage them by telling them that if you do this, you will be rewarded. You will be rewarded with a promotion. or more money, bonus or whatever. That is fine. And that person suddenly starts seeing the light and said, yes, I will be promoted. I will get more money. Let me do it. That is Rajas. So from Tamas, he has gone to Rajas now. And then after doing that, he will start doing for money. And then after he starts getting more and more money, he will start realizing the importance of actually doing it for the sake of doing it. And then that is the point in time, then he starts saying, oh, money is not important, but I need to do this. Then that means he has now progressed to sattva. This is the technique that Krishna advocates. And this is what I think we should also do in our organizations. Wherever we do work, this is the path. From tamas to rajas to sattva. Malina sattva and then to sattva. The malina sattva is contaminated. Rajas contaminated, sattva contaminated by rajas. Malina sattva. In the right path, malina sattva, because it is called sattva, malina sattva, because you are actually doing some things with selfish interest, but directed towards the goal that we need to achieve. So it is malina sattva. And then slowly the malina aspect will need to be taken out. That automatically will go out is basically what Krishna says. Or otherwise, such people will actually start listening to wise counsel and therefore will start understanding what sattva, the sattvic state is. So, leadership also is similar. Sattvic leadership is there, rajasic leadership is there, and tamasic leadership is there. So we need to really understand these traits of sattva, rajas, tamo gunas within us, such that, or within teams, within our organizations, etc., such that we are able to control and fine-tune it like the veena, so that the music comes out is music that comes out is pleasing. That the reason for Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga as part of knowledge segment is to fine-tune the way you think, such that the karma yoga of attitudes, aptitudes, and fortitude and all those things, karma yoga, jnana karma yoga, karma sannyasa, and dhyana yoga, etc., are fine-tuned towards sattva. Also, when you are working, what is your mental attitude? What is the fiber of your mind? How should your faith and focus be developed? That is the bhakti aspect. This sattva, this jnana, gunatraya of gunatrayas, will help you to actually fine-tune your mind, refine your mind such that bhakti becomes more and more sattvic. And the actions, karma, becomes more and more sattvic. So that is the reason why chapter 13 to 15 or 18 is placed at the end, so that you can, having understood how to perform in this world in a selfless manner and how to be actually inspired by the joys of the inner self, how to fine-tune that mind through this knowledge of sattva, rajas, and tamas is the next step. So the jnana part comes in now. So this is when you actually start applying the knowledge or fine-tune your karma knowledge and bhakti knowledge. You have to connect all these things together, and then only you will be able to. So that's the reason why I have put all this here, because in all the karma yoga aspects, we have looked at these practical implications. Now, we are trying to connect the sattva, rajas, tamo guna knowledge to those aspects of strategic wisdom, which is required for you to become a selfless worker, selfless performer, karma yogi. So these are examples of how you develop your knowledge, your perspectives, sattvic perspectives, rajasic perspectives, and all those characteristics, and how do you actually look at, from the eyes of the customer, the company, the competitor, the colleague, and, from creativity. all those things, we start developing our mind. These are all understanding your own self, how it works through the mind. Because in this world, we are blessed with the mind and intellect and senses, etc. Intellect, mind, and the senses, and the body is given to us, and the self is working through it. Now, what is our purpose in life? Our purpose in life is not just sit idle. It is to radiate knowledge and happiness. It is to radiate purposefulness, sattva. It is not about aggression and selfishness. It is not about remaining idle and not doing anything. You cannot sit idle. You should not remain without doing anything. And neither should you be selfish and aggressive in pursuit of your own goals. It is about larger goals. It is about contributing to society. It is about contributing to the environment. And for that, you need to develop your own mind. And that mind development, that man-making is basically what Bhagavad-Gita is all about. So we are connecting these things to the practical aspects such that we have a dynamic attitude to face the challenges of life. And this is how you enable the greatness within each one of us. This is the power of the self coming through us, enlightening the mind such that the mind is now fine-tuned towards sattvic tendencies. For that, you need to first understand what Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas is, and then how Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas are reflected in the outside world, in our thoughts and actions. And how do you fine-tune that? And then make it rightly tuned such that whatever you think and do becomes the music of life, of the self. Whatever you think and do becomes the music of self. That is the inner self. The music of self is about the music of coexistence and expansion. The music of yajna bhava. Music of yajna bhava. That music of yajna bhava is basically what is to be brought out. And that is when you are resonating with the self, not otherwise. That is what Gita is teaching us. Active resistance to evil. Active engagement in work for the righteousness of the purpose. That is the essence of Bhagavad-Gita. So, I hope this will help us to become more and more perfect in whatever you are doing, more and more perfect in the sense that striving towards perfection in life and life's entanglement in this world. Life's entanglement in this world is called as samsara. Okay, in Vedanta, it is defined as samsara. One word. We talk about samsara. Samsara, the ocean of samsara. You have to transcend the ocean of samsara. What do you really mean by that? It is a wonderful, what you call, analogy. Samsara. Samsara, the ocean of samsara. Samsara Sagara, the ocean of samsara. The ocean has got its own waves and, all those troughs and waves and all, and you will be thrown up and down and all those things. So, samsara. So now, in practical terms, what does it mean? It means this turbulence in life. About being pulled apart by the challenges, likes and dislikes, hope and despair. That hope and despair, life and likes and dislikes is actually also another analogy is used, which is called as life and death. Janana Marana. Life and death. That fluctuation in life, through life and death, through life, likes and dislikes, through hope and despair is what is called as samsara. And what that samsara, it is not just that, it is the mind connecting with that is what is called as samsara. That is what you should understand. Samsara is not only the turbulence. The samsara means the state of mind that is connected to the turbulence. That is the difference. You have to understand that. The state of mind that is connected to the turbulence of life is called as samsara. If your mind is not connected to the turbulence, what happens? There is no samsara. You are tranquil, you are equipoised, equanimous, no likes and dislikes. You're not connected. That is what the person of sattvic mind is all about. That is what Krishna defined as the characteristics of a sattvic person. Samsara will still be there. I mean, the sense the thing that creates the samsara will still there. It's not something. It is how you connect with that ups and downs in life is what is called as samsara. So, get rid of samsara means not getting rid of the world. To get rid of samsara, okay, no more ups and downs. I don't do anything. I'll just go somewhere, sit in a room, meditate. That is not what Vedanta talks about. What Upanishads talk about is that it is how you connect with that ups and downs and how you control that connection. How you control the connection, which means how you control your mind and its connection to the outside world of turbulence. If you can control that and not be influenced unduly by that turbulence, then you have attained moksha. That is the state of moksha that we are talking about. And it is this which will lead you to perfection. You will become a Purushottama if you are able to translate this knowledge of the Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunas and the Kshetra and Kshetrajna in such a fashion that all your actions of Karma Yoga and your connection to that world implied by the bhakti that you bring forth in your actions and thoughts and actions is basically what will drive you to perfection. And that is the subject matter of the next chapter, which is the essence of the whole of Bhagavad-Gita. 15th chapter is considered as one chapter Bhagavad-Gita. Kind of Ega Adhyaya Bhagavad-Gita or something like that. One chapter. Everything is ingrained in that. In 20 verses, very cryptic, small chapter. It is one of the smallest chapters. This and the 12th. Bhakti Yoga and Purushottama Yoga. 20 verses. The smallest two chapters actually forms what you call the pinnacle of the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 12 and chapter 15. That chapter 15 is our next chapter. And aptly it is also called as Purushottama Yoga. How you actually get in union with the perfect personality. That is your own, it is about fine-tuning your Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunas in your mind such that you rise to the level of perfection, perfect personality. Your own Purushottama. The Purushottama is actually unleashed from within you. The self as Purushottama is unleashed from within your bosom. That is 15th chapter, Purushottama Yoga. So we will look at that in the next chapter and next month, which will be on November 14th. So for the time being, I'm going to stop now with the discussions on Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. We will stop with our prayer and Gita Arati and the prayer, and then we will also have some discussion. Anandji will also come out with his own thoughts, and then others, if any, can comment and ask questions. We'll spend some time. So let us have Gita Arati first, then